You do it.
Thank you. So we will call the Local Agency Formation Commission regular meeting of February 3rd, 2020 to order. Clerk, please conduct the roll call.
Commissioner Orth?
Here.
Commissioner Ward? Going out of order. Commissioner McCowan, sorry. Commissioner Ward?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Here.
Commissioner Brizani?
Here.
Chair Brown?
Commissioner Brown.
Commissioner.
She say me?
Yes.
And we'll note that Commissioner Huff is absent and ask Commissioner Bazzani to take his seat, please. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 2, which is public expression. These are for items not appearing on the agenda. Anyone who would like to speak, please come forward and state your name for the record. Seeing no one coming forward for public expression, we'll move on to other business, which is item number 3. Item number 3A is the announcement of appointments and oaths of office. To announce the Board of Supervisors met and have reappointed Commissioner Brown and Commissioner McCowan as the regular county members. They have also appointed Supervisor Haschak as the alternate county member. Welcome. On December 2nd, the Commission appointed Mr. Richard Winkle as the alternate public member. And we will conduct oaths of office for the new commissioners. Commissioners Brown and Commissioner McCowan will not need to renew their oaths since there's been no break in service to LAFCO. So when requested, please stand at the podium, raise your right hand, and read the oath of office, which is the top part on the sheet provided to you. And then you can sign the oath and our clerk will collect them. And we'll start with Commissioner Haschak.
I, John Haschak, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Haschak. That's fine. And Mr. Winkle?
I, Richard Winkle, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Commissioner Winkle. We will now do conduct a roll call of commissioners and alternates.
Commissioner Orth?
Here.
Commissioner McCowan?
Here.
Commissioner Ward?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Brizani?
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Here.
Commissioner Haschak?
Here.
Commissioner Winkle?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 3B, which is the selection of officers and appointments to committees. The executive officer will conduct the election for chair. The election of officers consists of chair, vice chair, and treasurer of the Mendocino Local Agency Formation Commission for the calendar year 2020. We'll take nominations for each office individually or for all three. After nominations of officers, we will conduct a vote by roll call. Are there any commission comments or nominations?
I would like to renominate the current slate.
I'd second that.
Okay, any commission comments on the item or motion?
This is for executive committee?
This is for the officers of chair,
Officers.
vice chair, and treasurer. So the motion is for Commissioner Brown to continue as chair, Commissioner Orth as vice chair, and Commissioner Ward as treasurer. Are there any public comments to the item? Seeing none, we'll do a roll. Is there any discussion from the commission? We will do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Orth,
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Commissioner Bazzani.
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio.
Yes?
Commissioner Haschak.
Yes.
We typically
They're
don't do
non-voting.
alternates.
Oh, just kidding.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Christian's
Brown.
new. Yes.
And with that, I will turn this over to Chair Brown to do the appointments to committees.
Okay, thank you. I was expecting you to walk up here with a gavel, but I see it's still right here. Teasing. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I appreciate your confidence in me, and I'm really honored.
It's your last time.
Yeah, and as someone said to me, 2020 is your victory lap as you go out. So I don't know about the victory, but certainly I've enjoyed serving on LAFCO a lot of years and appreciate your confidence in me to act as chair my last year in office. And I need to appoint the executive committee, and I'd like the vice chair to join me. And Commissioner Ignacio, are you still willing to serve?
Yes, at the council's pleasure.
Okay,
Or excuse me, the commission's pleasure.
actually the chair,
The chair's pleasure.
if you
in this
accept.
case. I do accept.
Thank you, sir. And then we have our Policies and Procedures Committee. I'd like to ask Commissioner Gonzalez if you will be the chair and be joined by Commissioner Ward and Commissioner McCowan on the committee.
Accept.
All righty. Commissioner McCowan,
Of course.
Commissioner Ward.
Is there anybody else? I mean, I've been on the policy, but I also treasurer too. I just wanted to spread the wealth here. But if nobody else, I'll do it.
I think you have a lot of knowledge, and I think the three of you will be great working together.
Okay. I accept that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Don't want to go against my chair.
Great. And then it's three commissioners of what the Policies and Procedure Committee consists of. And we actually have some assignments to develop a policy on inactive applications. And also, we discussed earlier in the year a policy on area of interest. And I think that our EO will assist you with that. She has information that she has gained from other LAFCOs. And so I think it'll be, very informative, and I think the commission will look forward to receiving back whatever you put together.
We'll look to our chair too.
Okay, so we do have those two assignments noted. Do you have comment? Okay. Oh, okay, yeah, that is an issue. All right, moving on to the consent calendar, that's item number 4. We have 4A, 4B, 4C, and 4D. And I'm not sure, but I need to go through here really quickly.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
I really don't have anything to pull this time, but I will say to the commission, I'm going to work with our EO about coming up with a, she presented me another budget tracking that we need to work on. The only question I had was, did our rent go up?
It did go up per the contract, yes.
Okay, so, but our contract is still valid? I mean, it
Yes.
didn't expire? Okay.
Correct.
But I don't need to pull anything.
Okay,
I had one
I
question.
do have some too. Go ahead,
sorry.
Commissioner.
Internet website cost, did they shoot up quite a bit? Because it seems like we're at 89% of the budget now, or is it quarterly kind of thing?
It is an annual fee, so that will be it for the rest of this fiscal year. It did go up slightly, but that has been accommodated, yes.
And then, okay. Then the questions I had, is the audit services, is that a final amount?
That is the final amount, yes.
Okay. And then the RDA, Oversight Board election, we had 525 and 415, so there were the two different amounts, so is that additional?
That is additional, so that would be the full amount that was spent on, together, that would be the full amount that was spent on the RDA Oversight election.
Okay, because I couldn't tell year-to-date, accumulated, and if you look under, oh, it's third quarter subtotal, sorry. I just didn't see the total amount, and so I was wondering if it was an additional amount.
Okay.
And for the commission, that's a new state mandate, and it's unfunded. So we all have to take care of it. Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had a question about the audit. I think it was page 34, which I don't seem to have right in front of me right now. I did a minute ago. But it refers to the excess funds or unspent funds would be used to increase reserves or as a fund balance carryover for the next budget year. And actually, the practice has been we don't use it to increase reserves, so maybe just make a note, future audits, we could, as of the current practice, we could request that the auditor remove that reference to using unspent fund balance to increase reserves. And again, I believe that was on page 34.
Yeah,
Treasurer Ward.
that's our responsibility, John, to, we do the minutes or the notes, not the auditor, but I will make that note next year. I think it's just a rollover from previous years that we just kept the language in there.
hadn't changed it,
Yeah,
right.
hadn't changed it, so I'll make sure it doesn't happen next year.
Thank you.
Okay, any more comment? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Berzani?
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes. Okay, moving on, public hearing items, that's number 5 on our agenda. We have none. Moving on to item number 6. We have none. So our workshop items, will we have any coming up at the next meeting? I think we will have a public hearing, continued public hearing.
We do have a continued public hearing. We anticipate having a workshop most likely in April.
Okay. And what would that be on?
Mendocino City CSD, MSR, and Sphere update.
Okay, thank you. All righty, moving along, we'll go to item number 7 and 7A. Ms. Hinman, will you introduce the item, please?
Thank you. I wanted to start by noting that the links in the agenda packet are now active, so it doesn't look like it, but you can click on those items and it will take you directly to the staff report. So this staff report is on page 46 of your agenda packet. This is a proposed contract amendment to our legal counsel contract. It has been proposed by our legal counsel, Scott Brown's office, to include a clause providing for reimbursement at cost for commission-designated special projects. There is similar language for special projects included in the executive officer's contract, and it would allow for providing reimbursement by the agency identified in the agreement and at the direction of the commission. Special projects are identified in our policies and procedures and also in our fee schedule. So this would be a contract to legal counsel's contract to allow for him to participate in those types of projects at cost to the other entity. The contract language, amendment language is located on page 46, and the proposed amendment number 2 to his contract is on page 47. We are recommending approval to the proposed contract amendment, and there would be no impact to the current contract or to the budget.
Commissioners?
Is this retroactive? I mean, we have been, like the Uyghur application, does that be applied?
We already have a clause in, that allows for his participation at cost for applications. This would be similar to a pre-application review.
Okay.
Where there would be an agreement put in place for a special project.
Okay.
Commissioner McCowan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you cite examples of what might be a special project?
If there's a complex project that needs, like increased staff time without an application being put forward, for example, participation in general plan updates or for extended sphere of influence processings that are requiring quite a bit of staff time that exceeds what we have in our budget, the commission could designate, during a meeting, could designate that as a special project, and LAFCO could enter into an agreement that is similar to a pre-application agreement.
Thank you. Well, as far as the sphere of influence, I think, haven't we already set a policy that any entity seeking to increase its sphere of influence would be responsible for any costs associated with that?
If there is a sphere of influence amendment that is put forward by an entity, then they are responsible for the cost. That becomes an application. LAFCO also has the mandated sphere of influence updates that we do budget for. At times, if they are complicated and take extended amounts of staff time, this would be an opportunity or an option for the commission to designate that as a special project.
Hey, I think it might be a little bit redundant, although I can think of an example with the city of Ukiah where the policy saying if you seek changes or an increase, since the city's adopted sphere of influence is the 1984 sphere. And opinions vary on to whether you could actually use that 84 sphere to accomplish any annexation or other action. But changing it wouldn't necessarily be an increase in the sphere. So I imagine this policy then would cover that.
Well, this is not a policy. We do have policies in place for special projects. This is a contract amendment that would allow the legal counsel to charge for reimbursement at cost for special designated
And we would,
projects.
the commission though would have to designate what is a special project, and we really don't have any policy for that now, do we?
We do have a policy in our policies and procedures for special projects or special studies. This would
Okay.
fall under that policy. And it would require a designation from the commission as a special project, but this is really just a way for the legal counsel to be able to participate in that discussion and that special project without impacting the LAFCO budget. And because he does not have a clause in his current contract that would allow him to bill above the standard rates that he has applied
Right,
for.
so instead of the standard rate at 200, this does two things. He could bill at 250 if the project has been designated by LAFCO, and then that would not impact the LAFCO budget. The entire 250 would be assigned to the special project.
Correct.
One amendment I might request, and it's kind of to the commission anyway, based on the wording, but where it says towards the last, next to the last line of the amendment, subject, and this is on 46 of 104, subject to the approval for payment by the executive officer, chair of the commission, and/or the commission as they shall determine. It should, I think, just be subject to the approval for payment by the commission. Unless there's an objection to that, because I think that's our practice anyway. All payments ultimately must be approved by the commission. Or am I wrong?
That's correct. We do have a policy that allows for the chair to approve payments with ratification by the commission at the next meeting, if that's necessary, such as a canceled meeting or something like that.
So Commissioner McCowan, you're suggesting that we strike by the executive officer, chair of the commission, and/or?
Executive officer, well, yeah, we could strike either commission. So it would be, starting with the next to the last line, I would suggest it read, subject to the approval for payment by the commission. And that wouldn't preclude pre-approval by the chairs, subject to ratification. It's still ultimately the commission is approving.
Commissioners, input?
I don't have a problem.
Neither do I.
I'll move approval of the contract amendment with the changes.
I'll second.
Okay. Public comment? Anyone that would like to speak to this, please come forward. Seeing no one come forward, it's back to the commission. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Bazzani?
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I was going to pull the items for consent calendar, but I was trying to get through a meeting without doing that. But I had a question is regarding the legal fees. He's charging us this particular month $83.60 split between the commissions for his hotel room. And we're putting that into legal fees. Should that be split out to some other general ledger point?
You're correct. That is an error. We should be, in the past, we have assigned that portion of it to the travel and lodging,
Okay.
and we will make that correction. Thank you.
Good catch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. Moving on. Item 7B, Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Grant. Ms. Hinman?
Thank you. This is an informational update. The Sustainable Agricultural Lands Program grant was put forward by the County of Mendocino Department of Agriculture in concert with partners, various partners. One of them was LAFCO. They submitted the grant application in September of 2019, requesting a total of $208,600. The project has been approved for award, and they are now in the agreement phase of that, which can take several months. The project objectives are to develop an agricultural component for the Mendocino County Climate Action Plan, expand the carbon farm planning program and local soil health initiative, increase participation in Williamson Act and conservation easement programs, and increase communication with diverse stakeholders regarding agricultural land strategy objectives. So as I mentioned, LAFCO is a partner in the grant project, and our primary role is for a lead in Objective 4, which has to do with increased communication with stakeholders regarding agricultural land conservation and sustainable housing development. I did notice that the two attachments that were intended to go into the staff report didn't make it. My apologies. We can email those and post them on the website following the meeting. The tasks under that objective 4 will be to attend the monthly project meetings, organize and convene stakeholder meetings that will include explanations of the agricultural land strategy and participation in meetings discussing zoning and housing, and also to distribute project-related educational materials. So LAFCO is the lead, but we will be working with our partners throughout the process. LAFCO's budget for the tasks is $14,200 over the next 2 years. Of that total, $4,000 is a match requirement of in-kind services. There will be no impact to our current budget. We will be accounting for that time through the tracking of staff time on related tasks such as the City of Ukiah Sphere of Influence update, and as well as review of applications that affect agricultural lands within Ukiah Valley and throughout the county. The project is one of 6 statewide planning projects that was approved for award in December. And we had the first grant team meeting in mid-January to discuss the grant project and the main tasks and assignments. Next steps for the grant will be establishing the grant agreement, which again will take a few months, and then to formally initiate the project. And this is an informational report, so recommended for filing.
Commissioner Ward.
How and where will you track it?
We will do a separate time tracking for that item, and you'll see, that is mostly for an internal use to provide to the grant administrators so that they can track that in-kind services.
Okay. So we'll get a monthly report on that as well?
We can do that. We would track them under the, what it's being charged to. So if it's an application, it would go to applications. If it's part of the sphere update, we would track it as part of the work plan, but we'll have a separate tracking that we will submit to the grant administrator.
Any other questions or statements, commissioners?
Statement?
All right.
Just congratulations that we got this. There were only 6 grants given, and it's nice to get these grants that help our planning efforts. Rural counties generally, don't have those extra planning dollars.
Right.
So thank you to the state or the people who awarded the grants.
Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. However, one challenge will be to see that we don't exceed our in-kind contribution, because over a 2-year process and monthly meetings plus additional meetings, the time could easily mount up. So I'm sure our executive officer will be tracking staff time, and that should be part of the normal budget reporting, I think.
And
I'll
then,
be checking it.
And then as my role as a county supervisor, Commissioner McCowan, I'm also sitting on the SALT. And so there are times when Ms. Hinman, or go over a certain amount or time or whatever, but I'm always there at those meetings and can fill in.
And just to clarify that we will be receiving that funding above the $4,000. Once we hit our in-kind contribution, then we will be reimbursed through the grant for the other time that we
Okay.
spend. There will be no impact to the budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, and our working groups for the SALT have met quite a few times, and it was unfortunate in the mid-January something goofed up. Technology is great when it works. So we found out Uma was not on the call, so we got a hold of her, and then I think you were.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're not going to use that, RCD is not going to use that same technology that they used previously. All righty. So moving along, mid-year financial report. Ms. Hinman?
Thank you. The mid-year budget review financial report is intended to review expenses and revenues at the halfway point through the budget year. It's in order to help determine if there's any adjustments needed in order to keep within the adopted budget. The budget staff report is on page 50 of your agenda packet. We already talked about the draft audit that was prepared by Mr. Paling and has been accepted by the commission. So we will go ahead and finalize that. As shown in attachment 1, which is the 2018-19 adopted budget, that's on page 53. Our budget for this year is $160,248. The table on page 50 provides a breakdown of where we are as of December 31st. So for the staffing total, we have billed approximately 46% of the annual budget. For services and supplies total, approximately 44%. The work plan total is billed at 8%. I'll talk about that in just a minute. That is what has been billed to date, but it's not a reflection of what has been completed to date. For revenues, we have received $134,550 in apportionment fees. Those are collected through the auditor's office with the county. Revenues projected, so the total apportionment fees for the cities, county, and special districts was $135,000, split 3 ways. The reserves to meet expenditures, we had anticipated to utilize about $25,000 in reserves to balance our budget. I will jump down to the work plan status. We have 3 municipal service reviews and sphere of influence updates that were identified for this fiscal year. We have the Mendocino City Community Services District, Community Service Area 3, and the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District. All are in the administrative draft phase. Mendocino City CSD we do have an administrative draft that we will be reviewing this week. Yes?
Well, I wanted to ask a question. I made a note of it, and maybe you just haven't gotten there yet, but for the Sand District, have they communicated back to you?
Not yet.
Okay.
So we'll be working on that this week, trying to reach out to the sanitation district again and see if we can.
Do we still have an email address for, because their chair is Teresa McNerlin?
We do.
Could you send an email to her? And then did I get you Miss Horsley? She's the new member, her email on there?
Not yet.
I got it to you?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Just a correction, on attachment 1, it should be fiscal year 1920, not 1819. Aren't we in 1920?
This is,
Currently, we're in 1920.
yep, this is for 1920.
Yeah, it just says the attachment is 1819.
Oh, in the text, my apologies.
Anyway, on the remaining work plan tasks, this is a mid-year budget review, but we're only 10% and 15% for those. Are we going to be catching up to, at year end, have those completed?
Yes, let me, if I may continue, I will
Okay.
explain.
I thought you were done, sorry.
It's okay.
It's my fault.
The Mendocino City CSD, we do have an administrative draft. Part of the difficulties in getting the work plan completed this year to date have been our work on the application for the Uyghur detachment. I did subcontract to prepare with a consultant to have the Mendocino City CSD administrative draft prepared, so they have delivered that, and I am in the process of reviewing that, and then we'll be working with the district this month on that to make sure that we have everything accurate, and then we will bring it to workshop and proceed. The Ukiah Valley Sanitation District is in the research and development phase. We have, the administrative draft is started. We do also have a contractor who is helping us with that as well, so that we can move that forward. The critical piece will be to get a response to our request for information, which was sent out at the end of November. The Community Service Area 3 is also in progress, and we have been developing the administrative draft on that one as well. This one will, we are trying to lay the groundwork to tie this into the potential for emergency services in the future, as well as to discuss the area of interest for the fire services, particularly in the Anderson Valley, which staff was tasked with last year. So that one will take some work, and we want to make sure that we have the groundwork laid so that those items, those actions could happen in the future if that's necessary. I am happy to take any more questions about the work plan before I move on.
Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think it's appropriate that you're considering contracting for some of these tasks, because the Wager detachment has been taking a lot of time, and obviously these are labor-intensive projects. The Service Area 3, I think you indicated one of the things you're doing there is related to Anderson Valley Fire and their area of interest. Was that, did I hear that right?
When we had talked about the out-of-area service contracts that were being submitted by the Anderson Valley CSD, the commission had directed staff to look into that and to consider it in the CSA 3 MSR and Sphere update. So that's what we're trying to do. I think the direction from the commission was to see if, to develop a streamlined process for reviewing those out-of-area service agreements.
I'm not sure that should be a responsibility of the county, which is, I assume, paying the bill for the update on CS, right?
The CSA 3 falls under our work plan, so it is part of our annual budget. It is not a separately billed item to the county.
Okay, thank you. Maybe it should be.
Hey,
I think we discussed that early on.
John has a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had conversations with County Counsel about the CSA 3, especially in regards to the Sherwood corridor and that zone of benefit area. And it might be a good idea to be in communication with them, with County Counsel, because things are happening. And so they hope to bring it back to the board in March, something to get board direction, but I'll just leave it at that.
And I'll note that our executive officer is in contact with County Counsel regarding CSA 3. According to the report.
Go forward.
Thank you. So this, just to do a brief overview of the staffing efforts in the first half of the year. And these are the bullet points on page 52 of your agenda packet. We did perform the countywide RDA Oversight Committee Special District Selection process. Again, that is a mandated unfunded task that was assigned to LAFCOs in 2018. So in December, I'm sorry, we have a separate item for that. I'll get into that further then. Worked on the Uyghur detachment from the Mendocino Coast Healthcare District application. We have been coordinating with the City of Ukiah regarding their general plan update in anticipation of their sphere of influence update. We've had discussions with potential applicants regarding the Millview County Water District and Masonite property annexation. And then we have been also participating in the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Committee meetings and grant proposal participation, which has been awarded. So anticipated tasks for the remainder of the year. We will be working hard to get the work plan completed. We do anticipate and hope to plan to do some overlap with the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District into the next fiscal year in order to coordinate with next year's work plan, which is the City of Ukiah sphere update and the Ukiah Valley Fire Protection District. So we would like to coordinate, especially those population and growth projections for the Ukiah Valley area. We hope to complete the Uyghur application for detachment from the Mendocino Coast Healthcare District. We also have an application from Bill Moores to annex into the Irish Beach Water District. So we'll be working on that, and continued participation in the City of Ukiah General Plan Update and sphere discussions and potential proposals. And then we will be starting the SALC grant project participation process.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner?
what is the status of Mr. Moore's account with LAFCO right now?
We got money from,
He did submit a deposit to cost that will cover the outstanding balance of $610, and then a deposit, additional deposit towards proceeding with the application.
One more question, if I may. When it comes to new tasks or new applications, are you in communication with anybody on the South Coast about a harbor district?
Yes,
How would that show up in a report? Would that be next year's task?
that would be under, it could be this year, we're not sure on the timing of it. I believe that, I have spoken with City Manager Shoemaker, who has indicated that he will be going to City Council for direction, formal direction in moving forward with the potential harbor district formation. If that does happen, they are looking at a short timeline so that they can get on the November ballot. But as of yet, we have no application on file or pre-application.
We'll make sure that council gets on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the city manager who used to sit on LAFCO.
go ahead, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think that Mr. Moore has probably consumed a fair amount of your time in the interim period before he finally has renewed his deposit. Going forward, I certainly think, particularly in that case, every minute you spend responding to an email, talking to him on the phone, should be documented and charged, like our attorney charges in tenth of an hour increments. So, you know, any contact minimum, it'd be a tenth of an hour. If it goes to 7 minutes, it's 2/10 of an hour. I really think we should track our time on this one because, again, in the past, I think he's consumed an inordinate amount of time without paying for it, so.
Plus no paying interest on the money.
Correct.
And-
And just ongoing, how much time have we spent discussing it and staff working on it?
And I will include the fact that the EO and I have had many conversations as well.
Well, that ought to be billed.
As we have come forward to this point in receiving the deposit.
So then I don't hear any disagreement with what I'm suggesting.
Absolutely.
Nope, not from me.
Okay.
I-
Commissioner Ward.
Madam Chair, I just was concerned about you sending out this information, especially from the Sand District, and back in November, you said, and we're not getting any response, and, you know, trying to get these things wrapped up by the end of the year. I'm sure our chair will help out too, but is there any, when we're waiting for things, can we also send out information for next year's? Because it does take so much time to get the information, so you're not sitting around waiting for it, because I know these other tasks are taking a lot of your time too, but you can't do anything until you get that information back that you had submitted, so it just seems like we have this constant problem with some of these districts not coming up with the information we need to get going on the project. Just something to keep it going. As you know, my pet peeve is trying to get these MSRs completed on time, so.
Excellent point, thank you. We will look at doing that.
And that's why I mentioned that their chair, McNerlin,
Who used to
sat
be
on
on
LAFCO. And that's why we should take advantage of the fact that we're waiting. And, because she will understand that the commission wants to see these get done.
And that's our first MSR too, isn't it?
The previous MSR was never finalized, so this will be the first one that
Yeah.
we take through adoption.
And I believe that was due to lawsuits.
Right, because of the city of Ukiah, right.
Commissioner Orth.
Yes, I would just like to note, further in our agenda packet will be the CALAFCO survey, and we're actually doing quite well with our 5-year review process. Compared to LAFCO statewide, we're right there in the, I guess, the average mix, but we're performing, and that's important.
We'll get there. It's later on the agenda.
I would just
So I'm going to
disagree.
suspend further conversation. So let's finish with the final budget for 1920 and where we're at. Do you have any other comment?
Don't foresee any need to make any changes to this year's fiscal budget, so the recommendation is to receive and file a report if there's no further questions.
Seeing no further questions, we're moving forward on the agenda and moving to the Redevelopment Agency Oversight Board Special District Member Selection.
Thank you. We've covered much of this already, but this was to provide the commission with an update that we did receive the notice of vacancy on the countywide redevelopment agency oversight board back in December. So we immediately initiated that selection process under the government code. The executive officer conducts that election process through email and mail on behalf of the Independent Special District Selection Committee. So it's similar to our special district election. Excuse me. So we did go ahead and do that. The agencies that receive RDA Oversight Board funds are located on page 55 of your agenda packet. We received one nomination, and per the code, when one nomination is received, there is no election required, and that person is appointed. So that was Mr. Pete Bushby with the Ukiah Valley Fire Protection District. The notification is included on page 57 of your agenda packet, and this is a file and receive report recommendation.
Commissioner Ward.
What is Pete's, what would be his description of work? What would he be doing?
I actually don't understand that well, the RDA Oversight Board, so if there is a county member maybe that.
I'll have to ask Pete, I
So-
guess.
Yeah,
Well, briefly, annually, the
I'll let him explain.
Oversight Board and, of course, the Department of Finance has to approve all this, approves the payments that are allowable for each year to the previous RDAs, to the successor agencies. So Ukiah, Willits, and Fort Bragg all have successor agencies, and the Countywide Oversight Board approves their submittal of their expenses that are to be reimbursed out of the former redevelopment funds that are still being collected. If they want to refund their debt to get a better rate, then the Countywide Oversight Board would also approve that.
Okay.
So,
I'm just curious.
and it's a long wind-down process because most of the redevelopment agencies had issued bonds, and those bonds are to be repaid out of the funds that are generated to support the redevelopment agencies. One other function is to dispense with property that was owned by the redevelopment agencies. In some cases, it's sold for fair market value. In some cases, based on various criteria, it may be transferred to the city. At our last meeting, and we did have a a meeting last month, the Oversight Board approved transferring lands to the city of Ukiah that are east of and south of the former Mendocino Brewing Company at the end of Airport Road. It's, I think it was like 8 acres and 5 of it is all wetlands, and to be able to develop it would be very expensive, so the decision was made to transfer that to the city of Ukiah. So, you know, that's the kind of thing.
That's a lot of work. Pete's got his hands full, sounds like.
Well, the city staff does, the city clerk of Ukiah provides, seems to be providing the staffing to the Oversight Board. So there's, you know, no additional expense, and the city gets an administrative allowance, each city ODA agency.
So is he more of a rubber stamp kind of guy then?
Well, it's something that everything is in order and meets the criteria, so
Okay.
there hasn't been controversy.
Okay. Have to give him a bad time.
And of course, eventually, if the wind down is ever completed, then remaining funds go back to the school district, the special districts, the cities. But all of these entities are represented on the Oversight Board. So, you know, they have the ability to play a watchdog role if they think that any of the cities are padding their requests for funding. And again, hasn't been any controversy.
Thank you.
Yes, and actually, it was all subject to state legislation.
Well,
and
correct.
Yeah.
And the administrative allowances, so a certain amounts are granted as a threshold amount, and that's what the cities are statutorily entitled to, and they don't go above that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? So, we were on the RDA, and we are moving along to,
8A.
pardon, 8?
8A.
Yeah. 8A, the work plan, current and future proposals. We do have a written report, but Ms. Hinman, you want to go over it with us?
Thank you. I think we've covered a lot of this already, but I will do some highlights. We have a continuance of the Uyghur application for detachment that will be held on March 2nd, 2020. We have been in touch with the county auditor's office, and I want to thank Commissioner McCowan for following up on the county side, for proceeding through this tax share negotiation requirement for us to continue processing this application. So we hope to have that in place and ready for the March 2nd meeting. We are.
May I stop you for
Sure,
one moment?
sure.
And I believe it's going to get on the agenda, our CEO and deputy clerks, and we do have the chair sitting here, so we do need to have it on the agenda for the very last meeting that we have this month.
Thank you very much for following through with that.
And that would be February 25th, I believe.
Correct.
And there are questions as to procedure, so county council is looking into that to verify that the understanding of the auditor or controller is correct. So there's a 60-day notice period that went out to all the affected districts, and there was no response received, or at least as of day 59. So
Right.
I'm assuming we didn't hear anything back.
I checked, none.
And the assistant county auditor believes that with that 60-day period having run and no requests for negotiation, then the dollar amounts, positive and negative, to each of the taxing entities, as calculated by the auditor, can simply be ratified by a resolution of the Board of Supervisors. If that's true, we will do that on February 25th. LAFCO will then be in a position to take action and notify the State Board of Equalization. And we're talking about a whopping total of, I think, $5,700 that the
All this
district
work.
would lose, and approximately 30% of that amount would then go to the county and special districts, and about 70% would go to the schools. And it's all by formula, my understanding.
And I've actually seen a draft document of the breakdowns.
So we,
Correct. The auditor has completed their calculation of these are the amounts that would apply. So more info than you.
So is that, the breakdown that you received, is that available through the website?
No,
but-
it's just what the auditor has gone through. It's the process of what LAFCO asked.
Uh-huh.
And under state code and what our attorney, Mr. Brown, said we had to go through. And so they had to do a complete assessment of, where will this funding go?
Right.
Previous to us going forward. And that will be available, as I said, on the county's website,
Okay.
getting it on the agenda. And it may be on consent calendar, but I'm not quite sure. But then we will have that information within our packets for our next meeting.
Well, based on interest, I think we could also make sure the executive officer has it if she doesn't already, and she can transmit it to the commission.
I'd like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we are on for March 2nd then, for sure.
We're hoping, as long as there's no other bumps in the road.
Okay.
yeah, assuming
Because
county
this is a-
council.
excuse me.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Assuming county council verifies the understanding of the auditor, that 60-day notice period having run, the county can simply ratify the calculations, notify LAFCO.
Does the state board, though, you have to wait for state board approval, though?
I don't think so. It's, action is taken and LAFCO would notify the Board of
Okay,
Equalization.
good.
In state code, it just says we have to go through these actions. And once we've gone through it, your Board of Supervisors just has to ratify it and get it to LAFCO. Yes, sir.
And if I can divert us just a little more, it's really pretty earth-shaking for the districts. Like COMPSI will get an additional $7.
So we haven't heard any more from their attorney, the district's attorney, and everything's just set on hold then?
That's correct. We
Good.
did reach out to them, but did not hear anything back.
Good. Well, maybe we can get this over with. Be nice.
Commissioner McCallum.
One more, if I may, Madam Chair. Maybe we could request the executive officer to send a letter to the district requesting, if they have any further comment that they would like to make, please provide it, in time to be included within the agenda instead of a last-minute submission.
That would be nice, yeah.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for future we still have one application on hold. The City of Ukiah detachment of Ukiah Valley Sanitation District served areas from the city. That application still is on hold, and we have about $1,500 held in our account towards that application. We have a couple of future proposals. The Anderson Valley CSD proposed activation of latent powers to provide water and sewer services. I have not received an update from them in some time, so I will reach out to them. And then we've already mentioned the Millview County Water District proposed annexation of Masonite properties, and I have not heard anything recently on that either. We have gone over the work plan, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that if there are any remaining questions.
Just a comment, I know in Anderson Valley, because of the fires, that the structures, many of the structures that have burned will need to come into compliance with water and sewer issues, and that might help push the community in a direction that would continue this process.
Thank you for that update.
Commissioner Ward?
We refunded Russian River Flood Control their remaining application fee that they didn't spend. Is that pretty much dead now? They're not moving forward with that?
Correct. I spoke with the general manager and asked if they were completed with that pre-application, and they were, so that there is in the claims, there is a refund of the remainder of their deposit,
Okay.
and that will be closed.
Commissioner
Do you know
McCallum?
if they intend to apply?
There's been no indication that they plan to apply, and I welcomed them to submit another pre-application if they'd like us to look into it further.
All righty. Moving on. Correspondence.
None to report?
Okay. Executive officers report, and it's a verbal report. And an important point that all commissioners need to step up and get her done. So,
700s, you talking about?
Form 700.
Thank you.
yeah.
The Form 700s are due to LAFCO, to our clerk, on April 1st, 2020. These are forms that are kept on file and available upon request by the FPCC. Even if you fill out a form for whichever agency that you represent, LAFCO still needs its own form specifically named on the form. I believe there was a gift limit increase to $500 for 2019 and 2020. Each commissioner is responsible for preparing and submitting to our LAFCO clerk a wet signed form. You also likely need to submit them to your own respective agencies. However, it is not LAFCO staff to forward those to your agencies, so please take that responsibility.
And going forward with the explanation, there's like some need to go directly to Secretary of State. Some need to go to the county clerk recorder. So for city council, et cetera, special districts, you do have to turn in the form by that date. That is the deadline. LAFCO would be responsible, I believe, in turning in a form to the clerk recorder for the public members. I don't want to get, because we got that kind of crossways
That's what I was going to ask.
in the past. So there is a process, like I turn mine in, and it includes LAFCO on my assignments that I turn into the clerk, that the clerk posts and make sure FPPC gets it. I sit on 2 statewide boards, commissions, and so those have to go directly to whomever the clerk is there and get them submitted to Secretary of State previous to the April 1st. And it's that way with the Eel Russian River Commission. So you might have to end up doing several, but I wouldn't say April 1st, Uma. I would say it needs to be a little bit before that, at least a week. But I believe that LAFCO is responsible for taking the Form 700 down and getting it filed with the clerk recorder. Because public members have no other, what you're calling for, you need to go down and get it recorded with the clerk recorder.
Okay, that hasn't been our past practice,
That's
but
what I was
I
saying.
can certainly look into that and
We
clarify.
talked to Beth about that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ward and I did quite some time ago.
Well, I have submitted it to LAFCO EO, and then she submitted it to, or the clerk did, submitted it to the clerk for us, the county clerk. But years past, I gave it to the clerk. So do I give them to both? Would that solve it?
That was our previous clerk's direction.
Okay.
And that's what's in our clerk's manual.
Okay.
I can look into that further if you wish.
Yeah, but I didn't think it had been done previously.
I would just submit them to I've been doing this 20 years, so it's always
Well, I
been to the
know,
clerk.
but they never turned it in.
Oh, so I was in trouble, I know.
You should have been. but we won't say anything. This is only a public hearing,
Come get me, come get me.
so.
I
Any
believe,
questions?
Madam Chair, isn't it, per FPPC, the responsibility of the individual party to make sure those are filed, not necessarily the commission?
Yes, but what she's asking for is in what they're requesting. But yes, you're responsible, so as a city council person, when you file,
I've already filed.
okay, you do need to.
I filed for LAFCO as well.
Exactly.
But I
Listed.
do it all through the
But what
FPPC.
they're requesting, that they have to request, they have to have one available in their office that's signed by you. So all you do is use the same pages that you have connected. You just change the very front page and making it LAFCO agency rather than City of Point Arena.
I think we're good, aren't we? Yeah, I believe we're good.
Oh,
A
you
month
turned yours into her with
like
LAFCO on the front page.
the 2nd of January.
Oh, well, you're good.
I don't like going through that process, and I try to get it done as soon as possible every year.
Well, if.
I don't like the
and
hand
that's
walking,
great.
but I understand why I need to walk it across the hall. And
So what happens to someone in my position, you may have forms that come into you that's called a gift that you have to include. So you go to a dinner, and the dinner is paid for by another entity, and it's over a certain amount. They have to, I think, the end of January, to send out that document to you, stating that this was the amount that they gifted me, so
I'm
to
not that
speak.
fortunate, but thank you.
Oh. Well, sometimes it's like a $70 dinner or something, but that you're required to go to.
Right.
But if it's done by sponsors, whatever, you have to wait till end of January, or I would have been just like you. I was antsy.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Orth?
Just to make sure my form was correct that I turned in.
Yes, you are all
Okay.
set. Thank you.
It's hard to train our district that for 25 years did it differently. And we just added the secondary agency as LAFCO.
Right?
And I guess 2 years ago, we started this new process where you get an individual Form 700. And personally, I don't accept lunch from anybody
I don't either.
You can buy me lunch, though.
because it's too much paperwork.
But some of these statewide or national conferences, you end up getting that somebody else covers,
Yes.
but you're required to go to. You end up getting the form. And I forget what the number is. Anyone else?
Too complicated.
It is complicated.
Well, I do have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This process, and bear in mind, of course, there's many people who are appointed that, like public representatives, they're not necessarily used to dealing with all these bureaucratic requirements. And it occurs to me there's a tremendous amount of time spent by everyone complying with all of this. And for instance, members of a city council or a board of supervisors might have to file with half a dozen or more different agencies depending on the requirements of each for different boards we're appointed to. And it would greatly simplify the process, and nothing would be lost in terms of transparency if everyone was required to file with their appointing agency and, let's say, the Secretary of State. Or maybe only the Secretary of State, do it electronically. Anyone wants to know what are the filings, you know, the exact mechanism for simplification we could discuss. There's a tremendous opportunity to simplify this process, which is a real annual time suck for a lot of people. And it is possible to fill out the forms for 10 or 20 years and then realize, oh, that's what they meant. Also, this process has been in place since, I think, 1974. None of the amounts have been indexed. So in 1974, $100 might have seemed like a lot of money, or a $2,000 property interest. If you do the calculation of what's the dollar value then versus now, there's, I think, room for updating. I'll leave it at that. I won't have to be doing this much longer.
Well, it is what it is.
You can carve that in stone, I believe, as one of your signature phrases.
Right. So anyone else? Okay, moving along, committee reports.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do
Oh,
have-
I'm sorry.
Two more things to just
I'm
report on
sorry.
briefly.
Okay.
We did receive the State Controller's Office list of inactive districts for this year, and I'm happy to announce there were none noted for Mendocino County. AB 5, I wanted to touch briefly on that. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. It has to do with additional limits on the employee contractor definitions and conditions. I just wanted to report that I have spoken with our counsel about that as well, and generally, it's a wait and see how it shakes out at the legislative level. I understand there are some lawsuits pending, and there's still a lot of movement on that bill in particular. For my contract, I do have several other contracts, so he felt confident that it would not affect our contract. So I will keep you posted as that legislation plays out. And that's all I have.
Yes, that's a very fluid AB 5. And there might be change because of the court actions and everything that's going on with that. Thank you. All right, committee reports. Policy and procedures did not meet. Executive committee did. Did you want to report?
Did you want me to, or did you want to report?
I could, or you could. Why don't you report?
Sure, I will. We did meet on January the 22nd. We reviewed several items on today's agenda, including the applications on hold, and as stated earlier, that's being moved over to policy and procedures for their review and discussion. We did the mid-year budget review and received information. We did have a closed session. We reviewed one issue with potential exposure to litigation. And that's my report.
Okay, and I would like to just further that in the fact that Mr. Brown could not be with the commission today. So we probably will have a closed session for our next meeting with our counsel. Uma?
We do have a closed session for evaluation of the executive services
Today.
contract. And we do have our backup attorney, who is Marcia Birch, available today for that portion of the meeting.
So anyway, we just couldn't have it today, what was discussed with the executive committee. And Commissioner Orth, myself were in attendance, and Commissioner Ignacio was not able to make it. All right, moving along again. Committee reports, comments, or questions? Commissioners?
Commissioner reports?
Yes.
I just need to bring up, every year with our audit, there is a management letter that the auditor would like us to sign that says that all our information is presented was accurate and whatnot. It's just a standard letter. In the past, I signed them as chair, but this year I signed it as treasurer. And I just want to make sure that the commission was aware that I did sign that. I do review the audit, help out wherever I can, so I just want to bring that up.
Thank you.
That's a form letter that he wants us to sign. Sort of
And-
protects him. If something happens, he can say, well, your treasurer signed that letter.
And as the former chair and this year's chair, I wouldn't sign it without you.
Okay,
So I think it's absolutely appropriate.
thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Moving along, CALAFCO. Uma?
We have 2 items in the agenda packet for this. We have for item 8F, it starts on page 60 of your agenda packet. This is a staff report for the CALAFCO Board of Directors and includes the results of a survey that was done of all the LAFCOs throughout the state. I don't have a presentation on it per se, but it is in your packet. If there are any questions, can try to answer them or be happy to look into it further. The other item is the CALAFCO legislative update, and that's included on page 98 of your agenda packet.
And for the commission, I thought it was important, although the survey is public and posted, but we all received it through email. And I felt it was important that the public also have it within our packet, so they can also understand what LAFCO's responsibilities and duties are. So I really appreciate you putting that in, and I think there was comment made earlier about us as a LAFCO and how well are we doing compared to other LAFCOs throughout the state. And it looks like we're doing pretty good. And it was very interesting to me, 100% reported, but that was 53 LAFCOs. So we know that some of those little counties, probably like Plumas, Sierra,
Alpine.
Inyo, have a combined LAFCO, which is appropriate. But I thought it was important. Anyone have questions on it or statements?
Well, you wouldn't let me say it before, but Tony's comment, most of those bigger cities are into their second and third MSRs. Even though we're doing ours, we're pretty behind by doing our second and thirds too.
It's my understanding when I talked to some of the LAFCO commissioners at RCRC meeting, when I approached them about the increase in membership dues, they're pretty far behind. I mean, we really are an average. But when you look at LA County or LA LAFCOs or, Orange County, San Diego, Santa Clara, some of the big ones, they have full departments that work on those with in-house consultants, and I don't think they mess around. We're very patient as a LAFCO with all of the different agencies that we have to do MSRs and SOIs on and try to work with them. And I think the comment is on that, that many of these agencies have volunteer boards. Some have no staff, and it's difficult. They don't really understand why. They want to wait till the next meeting to discuss it with, the other board members, and they don't realize the importance of getting that information in and the responsibility that LAFCO has. But I think that's getting heard throughout the county, and I do appreciate Uma and how she works with all of them, because she's gotten more done than what was done in the past.
Exactly. The other problem I'd like to bring up, Madam Chair, is that there's a lot of turnover in commissioners too. City council members move on, Board of Supervisors move on, and so you get a lot of new people coming on these commissions that don't have the institutional knowledge to keep pushing the executive officer to get their job done. Or they need to come up to speed.
Yes.
And we should note, an MSR informs those new members quite a bit about their own agencies. But it's a very useful tool for that purpose.
And I have found that as a county supervisor. And just going through these, I also chaired the county drought task force and was able to help out one water district, little one, that needed a new water tank and connect them with a grant funding And Supervisor McCowan and Jurdy's North Coast Resource Partnership got to approve that grant funding to help out Pacific Reeves, I think it's called, Water District in Albion. So they were, they were really appreciative, but I wouldn't have known had it not been with the drought and all the reporting that we had and who was doing what and how much help they needed, and then also with the MSRs and what their needs were, that was in, that particular report. So they're really good. Yes.
I did want to note that item number 12 under miscellaneous on page 61 talks about the breakdown of how many MSRs were completed by how LAFCOs were doing in general, about how many MSR and sphere updates they were doing in the past 5 years. And we are in the upper 23%. We have completed 39 sphere of influence updates in the last 5 years. So that is in the top tier of LAFCO's work that's being produced. And I also wanted to note that I hear over and over again that the state legislators, the first place they look is the LAFCO MSRs when it comes to issues that are brought forward with special districts or even cities. And we do get those, our MSRs quoted quite often.
Good.
Good information.
But it is important to note that even after our MSRs are done, the information changes. And so 5 years, a lot of things can happen. And we're supposed to renew them every 5 years. So
Yes.
that's my point, is that even though we've completed them, they're not actually accurate, up to date, because a lot of things happen in 5 years.
So anyone, Commissioner
If I
McCollum?
could backtrack a little bit to Commissioner reports, I should mention that City of Ukiah did revisit their designated sphere, which on, I think, August 27th, they, official action of the City Council on a 3-2 vote, approved the 1984 sphere as the sphere that they chose to pursue for their general plan update. So that's ridge to ridge, Highway 20 to the Boonville Road. There were concerns raised by members of the public, by our executive officer, by Chair Brown and myself. In response to that, the city revisited the proposed sphere for their general plan update. It is no longer ridge to ridge, and yet it still takes in virtually the entire Ukiah Valley, all of the Redemeyer Road area, Deerwood, El Dorado, Regina Heights, Talmadge, all of Calpella. So it still appears to be fairly expansive on the map, but the city did, on a 5-0 vote, with very little discussion, ratify the reduced sphere, reduced from the 84. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out going forward. I think it still raises many of the same concerns that were expressed back in August, when, after being on record for, I think, 24 years of having a greatly reduced sphere from the 1984. So in 95, the city unanimously approved, as part of their general plan update,
I was in the room.
a greatly reduced sphere. So that, I think, can be taken as official city policy since then, but they never came forward to LAFCO to ratify that sphere. So the 1984 remains the approved sphere, but it's an open question, what could they do with that? A lot of people believe it's a little bit stale dated, and it's too expansive under current LAFCO law and our local LAFCO policies. So potentially that might be a future agenda item to bring the commission up to speed on what are the state requirements and our local policies regarding a sphere, and is the city proposed sphere currently, or proposed sphere, potentially in conflict with our policies and state law. I think it may be beneficial for the commission to get informed on that, because it'll certainly be a discussion going forward.
And I think we did discuss that several meetings ago about it's coming to mind, it's the city of Elk Grove and that particular legal case that occurred for the sphere of influence of a city within a county, and LAVCO not allowing it. So there was a lawsuit, and so that's where area of interest comes. So the Policy and Procedures Committee is going to be, diving into that, looking, not particularly that case, but looking at policies now that they have at different LAVCOs throughout the state, and coming back and making a recommendation to this board. So I think it's very timely, and we need to get it done. All right, one other question. I still have the document for the Coast Hospital District. So in our next packet, if it's all ready for hearing, do we get a new one? Have there been any changes? This is a public hearing process, but I still have my document. So I'm just looking for a straight yes or no. Should we keep these documents available? How are you going to do that?
We are going to provide a very comprehensive packet with past staff reports included, because it's been some time has passed since we have gone through that process, and some commissioners were absent the first hearing. So we will have a comprehensive packet with all information in it.
Okay. And we've had commissioners that have viewed the video, and that video was October or November?
October.
Okay, so anyone that's new on the commission for that particular public hearing should go back and view it previous to our next meeting, where we have a continued public hearing.
Right.
And actually, the public hearing was continued as of January, I believe. Was it December?
December 2nd.
December 2nd, okay. Commissioner?
Just a comment, if we're done, Commissioner McCallum, is this?
Well, just to that point, I believe at our last meeting, and as reflected in the minutes, Commissioner Ward and I did view the
Correct.
previous meeting.
Correct.
However, Mr. Winkle might want to review that.
would love to, yeah.
And that would then
Tell me
allow
where.
him to
You too.
participate in the hearing, correct?
Yes, and
And to you as well.
Ms. Hinman, why don't you announce it publicly where all commissioners, if they do want to go back and review, can do that?
Sure. The YouTube, all the meetings are held on YouTube, and the meeting minutes for that meeting has a link directly at the bottom of at the adopted minutes that lead you directly to that relevant meeting. I will also send an email with the direct links to all of the commissioners for viewing.
So that's in here now in the minutes, right?
Yes, correct.
At previous meetings, you suggested we just keep our packet. So, just trying to eliminate some time for our EO to put this all together. I would just need a summary is all I would need. And then the people that don't have the packet, maybe just send it to them. Because you've asked us to keep that.
I think that gets too difficult, and I think we have to keep it very
I'm
legal.
just trying to cut our time down is all. It's a lot
I
of time.
understand, but I think we have to keep it very legal, and provide new copies as she suggested.
I tried.
I appreciate
I
it.
know you did. Me too. All righty.
I have a
Yes,
closing
sir.
comment I wanted to thank you for putting the links in the document. It makes it very easier to get right to where you're at rather than trying to flip to the page. Good work. Keep it up. Thank you.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're an hour and a half in, but we are going to take a 10-minute break. to make sure that the meeting that is in, where we're going into closed session, is available. But we'll take a 10-minute break. And I need to report out after closed session, but for public and for the legal explanation, the LAFCO Commission, we will be going into closed session. It's 9A, listed on our agenda, and it's pursuant to Government Code 54957B1. And this has to do with the contract of the executive officer, performance evaluation, and we will report out once we have completed. Okay, 10-minute break. So those of you that don't know where we're going, it's back here in the hallway. There's a door right across from the hall. It is the Board of Supervisors conference room. Thank you. It almost went out of my mind.
And are the alternates welcome to participate?
Absolutely. Yes. If they can. Is back in session. We just have come out of a closed session after the evaluation of our contractor who serves as our executive officer. Nothing to report other than that. And so we adjourn the meeting until March 2nd at 9 a.m.
Thank you.